Greeting people, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades. This is Kenyan Revolutionary bringing you a brief session. This is going to be brief because I don't have much time. I'm in the middle of something, but I was just thinking of this and I didn't want to wait till I be in a position to actually shoot a nice video. But I was thinking about this, ladies and gentlemen, and you can help me kind of marinate on this question. Do you think this Gen Z movement was actually brought about by the Kenyan political elite? Now, I made a couple of videos, two exactly. You can go check it, where I asked, what was the nexus between Jimmy Wanjigi, Raila Odinga, William Samoei Ruto, and all these folks. Now, I said, given the fact that Jimmy Wanjigi came out and said publicly that he was behind the financing of this Gen Z, not only that, Rogers Kimpembe, I think his name is, a very close ally of Rigathi Gachagua, also said that he was, and he said he made it a plural, saying that they were behind the organization of this Gen Z movement. And since the protests have died down, we can now see that the most influential people in this Gen Z movement have joined the main political party coalitions or parties in Kenya. Casmuel has joined ODM shamelessly. Morara, we know he's a plant. He used to work in Ruto's campaign. Hanifa and Boniface Mwangi, we know is their 3-hour meeting with the DCI, which we still don't know what that was all about. So I posed the question, could it be that this whole Gen Z thing was designed to do just that? One, bring about or have the members of the so-called opposition, the ODM folks, join the government. Because yes, people say that Raila Odinga used the Gen Zs in order to join the government. Could it be that that was the main focus? And there's another one that I've always said. Eventually, this ODM, Azimio folks, and Kenya Kwanza, their main aim is to change the constitution. As I've always reminded you guys all the time that what is happening in Kenya, all this abracadabra, the tribal or whatever political alignments that is happening in Kenya is happening so as part of the BBI or the NANCO report is being implemented. There were 9 recommendations that were being implemented, and one has already been done, which was the one has been done. The first one was the IBC Amendment Bill, which is now IBC Amendment Act. It's law. And I'm glad I saw last Friday that the courts have challenged its legality. How legal was it? There was no public participation. And I've always asked that question. This thing was rushed to be made law, and there was no political participation. So where do we stand as Kalonzo and his team are also in courts in Kiambu, you know, fighting the appointment, the nomination of one of the commissioners. Now you see what I'm saying. Just so that we're not lost in the sauce, let me just bring you into what I mean here. Listen carefully, because I will have another session in the evening where we'll discuss. This is what I'm saying. I think, and I might be wrong, I think the Gen Z movement was brought about by the political class. It might be a case of these guys are not getting along within these political elites. The Ruto faction, I think Ruto is at odds with his fellow elites. And that's why they're fighting him. But all in all, I think maybe they are working on the same goals, which is to maintain the status quo. Remember, these guys are in power and would like to continue to be in power because that's the only way they can maintain their wealth. That is the only way they can lord over us. Karibu sana Shimeriam. Niko mistuni. Niko hapa Kibera. Sasa mpaka nijifiche. Lakini nitakuja jioni ndio mtaniona sura. Lakini karibu sana. Make sure you like the video, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. But nataka mfikirie. Kwa sababu ukiangalia hii kitu, if you look at this thing carefully, Raila Odinga is most likely going Subaru na Subaru. Subaru inanitafuta bwana. Sasa mpaka nijifiche. Unajua huyu Ruto. Basi yai, Mariam wewe acha kunichekesha. So mpaka tufikirie. Raila Odinga is most likely going to lose the elections of the AUC chairmanship, chairperson position. He's going to lose. That I can guarantee you. I mean, we saw the debates, and it was clear as day. Yeah, like a 5, 6, 5 and 6. Ndio. Yeah, mpaka tujiadhari. So I read somewhere that after the debate in AUC, Kasongo hired 527 people to post a pro Raila Odinga victory in the debate. They were hired to say that Raila Odinga performed exceptionally, to say that he won the debate. That's why you saw on the Twitter space, because they were worried. During the debate, there were so many people who were posting, a lot of Kenyans were posting anti-Raila sentiment on the Ninio. So to counter that, Ruto and Raila hired a team of 527 people to post positive messages supporting Raila Odinga on the day of debate, which was last Friday. That's why if you were to open Twitter after the debate, every Dick, Tom, and Jerry and Harry from affiliated with the Kenyan government were posting pro Raila messages saying that he has won the debate, which obviously wasn't the case if you are to be impartial on the issue. But again, I would like to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, I will make this brief. Like I say, I won't stay here long. Elisha Okinyo is saying Gen Z was organic. You might be right. I'm not disputing. I'm just scratching the surface of this issue. And I want you to think about it very keenly. And I'll walk you through this. Before the Gen Z movement, when the Mandamano were happening, before the Gen Z Mandamano, when the Azimio were mandering, before there was their so-called handshake, the NADCO report, Jimmy Wanjigi met with Raila Odinga. Remember? Because kumbuka hawa se walikuwa si marafiki. But they met, they had a lunch, and it was reported by Nation. And after that, of course, we know Raila wakaanza mambo ya NADCO. And after that, there was Gen Z movement that happened after the finance bill. But during the finance bill, remember, even after before the finance bill, the Gen Z movement, or one after the first one or the second one, or before that, Eric Omondi, who is a close ally to Raila Odinga, because Eric Omondi, I think, is one of those people who will try to vie for a seat under the ODM's ticket in Langata, I think, if I'm not wrong. Hello, political Kaur was with Jimmy Wanjigi after Jimmy Wanjigi's place was raided. Why did they raid Jimmy Wanjigi's raid in your house? If you remember that, I want us to think about it. I am not saying you are wrong to think that Gen Z was organic. It might have been organic, but I have my questions. There's too much coincidences happening. If we are to connect the dots, look at the timeline. Jimmy Wanjigi, during the Azimio protest, while they were still claiming that they won the elections, he met with Raila Odinga and rekindled their friendship. Because remember walikosana when Jimmy Wanjigi vied to become the presidential election, a candidate for the ODM, Raila kamtoa, wakakosana, but they rekindled their friendship while the Azimio folks were fighting on the streets, saying that Ruto was illegitimate, mara sijui alete bei ya unga chini, wafungue sava, sijui nini. They rekindled their friendship with Jimmy Wanjigi. And shortly after that, of course, waliwacha maandamano, wakaacha maandamano, Raila akatuambia tanaenda AU, and the NADCO started, wakaanza mambo ya NADCO. And shortly after that, because remember, in the NADCO report, I want you to listen to me carefully. I'm walking with you step by step. So Jimmy Wanjigi rekindles the relationship with Raila Odinga. And soon after that, the NADCO report is agreed upon. This talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. Kalonzo Musyoka and his team goes and meet at Bomas with Cheriot and other clowns. And the Mandamano from Azimio faction is suspended. And then Raila tells us he's going to AU. So again, examine the sequence of events. Jimmy Wanjigi meets with Raila and rekindles their friendship. They never told us, shared what they were discussing when they had that lunch, remember. Then after that, Raila suspends the Maandamano and shows up with Obasanjo telling us that it's going to AU. And then the talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza resumes with Kalonzo Musyoka and his team. Now, in this NADCO meeting, there were leaks. In fact, they were telling us that there was talks of creating new positions, like the official opposition, the prime ministerial position, and so forth and so forth in this recommendation. And after it was agreed upon by the two factions, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, it was both signed by Raila Odinga and President William Ruto. Then after that, ladies and gentlemen, that's when Azimio folks, remember, in this NADCO report, there are some folks from Azimio who are supposed to be included, who are supposed to join the government. Okay? They were supposed to join the government. But Azimio did not want to appear like they were joining or officially joining the government, because they did not want to rattle their followers. So they didn't want to be obvious. So they had to create a crisis. Now, what was that crisis? Because they had told Ruto that they have suspended their maandamano in order for them to sit down and have these talks. That was one of the preconditions as to if they are going to talk, if they were going to have a meeting, if they were going to have any kind of dialogue, the maandamano was to be suspended. So while the talks were going on, the Azimio could not have their hands seen directly to be supporting or funding the Gen Z movement, because they had agreed to stop the maandamano, the Azimio, what was dubbed as Azimio Maandamano, Azimio protest. Elisha Okinyo is telling NADCO report was one way of cooling temperature. Baba Fua always plays the trick after election, then join government backdoor creating position. Even BBI was doing so. Is one way of elites creating position. Yes, you're right. But here's the thing. I think Gen Z was Azimio's protest. They did not want their hands to be seen to be openly supporting Gen Z, because they had agreed with Ruto that they will stop the protest in order for them to sit at the NADCO table. That's why they supported Gen Z indirectly. And the Gen Z protest were to achieve the very things that they wanted in the NADCO report. I'll tell you how. Ask me how. So here's the thing. When they sat down for the NADCO, remember, when the negotiations were going on and they agreed upon everything, remember Raila gave a speech and told us that some of the recommendations in the NADCO proposal will require the constitution to be changed. And anyone who knows anything about law knows that for the constitution to be amended, we have to go and have a referendum, a plebiscite. And he said so. So for them to be seen, remember, Azimio, they want to maintain their position as the official opposition. But the only way they can do so is to not join the government officially, but do it in a very clever way that can fool Kenyans. So let me fast track this. After the NADCO thing was agreed upon, and they've started implementing it, and they're still working on it to this very day. They first started by passing the IBC amendment bill, which now the courts have said it was unconstitutional, as I said it before. Yes. Yes. That's a good point, Alicia. If Gen Z was Azimio protest, funny enough, the media was the one who coined the name Gen Z. It was basically young people showing their anger, which was boiling. Azimio just took advantage. I'll tell you why. Here's the connection between Azimio and Gen Z. I'll tell you why in a minute. Now, think about it. When Gen Z started, it looked organic. Maybe it was. Right? This is when it continued. We had the June 25th. They went to the parliament. We know what happened. After that, funny enough, remember, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. Remember, oh, sorry. Woo, I have to cough. Excuse me. Woo. When, let me connect the Azimio and Gen Z. When the protests were happening every Tuesdays and Thursdays, Jesus, excuse me. When the protests by Gen Zs were happening every Tuesdays and Thursdays, okay, the NADCO was being discussed, and the day that they agreed upon it, okay, they agreed upon it and implemented the first step on the 9 recommendations that were supposed to be made implemented. The IBC, remember, the IBC amendment bill was to be signed, ascended by the president at KICC. Guess who showed up? Guess who showed up, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters? Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka went on and signed. Sorry, they were present in the ceremony at KICC, where the president assented to the law, made it law. IBC amendment bill became an act. Okay? And you remember, on that very day, that's when people felt like Baba alisaliti wa Kenya. Right? Remember, after that, Ruto, along with Azimio folks, especially the ODM side of things, the Azimio goons were making videos saying, Nyinyi Gen Z, tokezeni, mtaona. They were threatening to beat up any Gen Z that goes to the streets. And after that, Ruto was clamping down on the young folks that would dare go to the streets. And after that, remember now, if you've been following closely, remember that Jimmy Wanjigi guy who met Raila Odinga on that luncheon that we don't know what they were discussing? Remember that Jimmy Wanjigi guy came up once this Azimio protest stalled, was suspended. Sorry, once this Gen Z protest was stalled and stopped. Don't you find it funny that after Raila Odinga sent his so-called experts to join the government, don't you find it funny that there haven't been any posters asking people to show up in the Nairobi CBD and other major cities to protest, to remove Ruto? Don't you find it? What a coincidence that after Raila Odinga and Mbadi and Joho, Opiyo Wandayi, and that former governor of Kakamega and others have joined the government, you don't see Gen Z posting any posters, online posters, asking people to go to the streets, occupy State House. What happened to that? Isn't that a coincidence? Now, here's the connection. Remember that guy who met Raila Odinga at that lunch? Jimmy Wanjigi. Jimmy Wanjigi came out and say clearly, without batting an eyelid, that he financed the Gen Z movement. Remember that? He's the guy who met Raila Odinga and said it in one of the, I think, Lynn Ngugi or something was interviewing him, and he said, yes, I help the Gen Z in the protests. I finance it. Roger Kipembe, there was one roadside address of the people where he was with the former DP Rigathi Gachagua, and he came out, stood up, standing right beside of Rigathi Gachagua and said, sisi ndio watu ambao tulikuwa tukisaidia our Gen Z. And Rigathi Gachagua never corrected him, never said, hey, I was not part of it. Why did he use the word sisi? Sisi, for those of you who are not familiar with Swahili, is a plural word saying we. Basically saying we, me, and the vice president were part of the organizing of this Gen Z and possibly funding it. So you see the connection. Jimmy Wanjigi, if you don't know, he has said it on tape, bragging, saying that the government of William Samoei Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta was formed in his living room. You understand me? The point I'm trying to make is this. This man has great influence in the high corridors of power. He rubs shoulders with the Raila Odingas. He rubs shoulders with Uhuru Kenyatta. He actually said that he has Uhuru Kenyatta's number in speed dial. He rubs shoulders with Kibaki. He rubs shoulders with Musyoka, this billionaire. You understand me? So he's no stranger to these folks. He's no stranger to the Rigathi Gachaguas. I just have a little cough, my friend. Thank you. So you see what I'm saying? Do you see the connection? I want you to connect 1 and 2. As soon as Opiyo Wandayi, Hassan Joho, and the rest of them from the ODM, from the Azimio side, joined the government, the Gen Z movement was no longer. No one is going to the streets anymore. the influencers, the perceived leaders of this movement of Gen Z, Caswell, went ahead and joined ODM. Morara, we all know Morara after playing us, pretending. It's now more than clear that he is a Ruto's tool. We know Hanifa and Boniface Mwangi are a bunch of clowns that are pretending, paid activists. Can you see how the political class are using the Wananchi to come together? And let me tell you now, you hear them say, there's another protest coming. There's another protest coming. They're preparing for another protest. Jimmy Wanjigi was Spice FM. I heard him. But that protest shall be used probably in 2025 after Raila fails to secure the AUC seat. That protest by the so-called Gen Z shall be used to change the constitution of Kenya. That protest shall be used to implement the remaining proposal of the NADCO report. Like I told you, they said that there are some parts that will require the constitution to be changed. And in order to do that, they will have to go to have a referendum to change the constitution. And the only way they can have the country go for a referendum is to first create a crisis that will be used to put the country into a mood to go for a referendum. And they'll only do that after February next year. Watch the space. Because they know Raila Odinga most likely will not make it to the AUC. And after that, when he comes back, he will demand that the NADCO be fully implemented, regardless of how illegal it is. Because these political elites do not respect the law. So watch out, folks. After February 2025, you will see there will be much talk of a new referendum, over the change of the constitution. Because the IBC amendment bill, which is an act now, is a product of the NADCO report. That's why you saw that judge on Friday saying that this thing was illegal and there was no public participation and so forth, so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, let's think about that. I won't stay long. This was just a teaser for tonight. I shall bring you a more comprehensive analysis on this issue. For now, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Like, comment. Thank you, Alicia Okido. Thank you, Principal Kaur. And Shea Mariam, as always, and others who will watch this on repeat. Join me in the evening at night, Kenyan time, when we shall look into this and also address what has been happening, the latest happenings in Kenyan politics. Like, share, subscribe, comment, even if you're going to watch this on repeat. And I will see you guys later. Peace and blessings.